Hey guys, it's Chris. From possible time travel to inexplicable finds, here are 8 odd archaeological artifacts that were found by accident, or at least were very out of place. Number 8. The Dorchester Pot. In the June 7, 1851 issue of Scientific America, an object buried 15 feet within a sedimentary rock was discovered. The item in question was a bell-shaped pot that was made of zinc and silver. It was eventually rooted out by an explosion that actually damaged the object. The most fascinating part of this story is that the artifact was estimated to be at least a couple of million years old. And that's all according to its location within the rock, which makes for its actual discovery being a definite mystery. Let's consider for the moment that this aging of the bell, which is also known as the Dorchester Pot, is accurate, or at the very least a couple 100,000 years close to it. This means that the capabilities of our ancestors could be much greater than previously expected. The fossils of our human ancestors at their oldest are about 6 million years old, and the fossils of modern humans are at least 200,000 years old. And there are obviously conflicting timelines here, given the implication that one of our distant ancestors crafted this metal object. Why this matters is that the bell itself is very intricate in design, which means the creator had to put a lot of complex work into it. It also happened to be found in Dorchester, Massachusetts, which brings in the question of who made the object. A lot of theories come into play, including the fact that this object could have been buried by mistake. You could even say time travel if that ever existed. But according to archaeologists, they identify it as a candlestick of Victorian style. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, in collaboration with MIT, have conducted tests over the past 35 years to determine its origin. And so far, the object has only been compared to others that didn't exist in prehistory, such as a 19th century Indian pipe holder. Definitely odd and definitely a conflicting find. Number 7. The Lost E.T. game. Let me share a bit about video game history with you as it pertains to the United States. First came the arcades, which started with Pong, and then Atari started the console revolution, bringing video games into the homes of many. Many other startup companies joined Atari and started to flood the market with games and consoles. The problem was not all the games were of quality. And by the time 1983 came around, the industry was hanging on by a thread. And E.T. happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back in this time of video game hyper-production. No, it wasn't the movie, but the video game. One of the first video games made after a movie. The game was made in a very short amount of time, which was part of the problem. And the game was so bad that barely anyone bought it. Since all the copies seemingly disappeared, it was rumored that the powers that be took all the packages and cartridges and then dumped them in a random landfill to bury them, never to be seen again. And this urban legend had its skeptics until 2014. A Canadian entertainment company called Fuel Industries was allowed access to the landfill in New Mexico, and eventually they found the lost stash. This was part of a documentary called Atari Game Over. This abandoned trove not only had the fabled E.T. games, but also contained other classics that didn't sell well. Among the pile, Pac-Man, Breakout, Star Raiders, Pele's Soccer were collected and sold to benefit the community. However, there still remains games left underground, since they were ordered to stop excavating by the city. And now for number 6, but first be sure to click that subscribe button and join us at Worldless so you don't miss any videos. Number 6, Roman Villa. Luke Irwin was from Wiltshire, England, and he was just doing some work in his barn when he went underground and found something he didn't expect, a mosaic. Curious, he decided to take a picture of the mosaic and sent the photo off to get some details on what exactly it might be. He sent a picture to his local council, and within 24 hours, they arrived with a team of archaeologists to investigate the item. A flood of people came to his barn and carefully excavated around the mosaic. And to their shock, they found that it was just a small part of a rather large building. And after 8 days of work, they found themselves looking at an ancient Roman villa. After some research, they dated the villa to between 175 and 220 AD. And even go so far as to say the villa was around 3 stories high at one point in time. And objects were found within the now now underground villa to show that this was lived in by some high-class Roman citizens. We found a whole range of artifacts demonstrating just how luxurious a life that was led by the elite family that would have lived at the villa, said one of the archaeologists on the site. As for how it got there, the house somehow collapsed, and this led to the overgrowth that formed on it, which actually preserved it rather well. Number 5. 300-million-year-old screw. In Kaluga, Russia, around the late 90s, archaeologists found a screw in a rock. And while that's not really interesting on its own, is interesting when you realize that the screw itself was embedded in the rock, and the rock itself was dated at being 300 million years old. This is arguably one of the most controversial items on Earth right now, and mainly because it refutes certain beliefs about our world. For example, if this screw was indeed from 300 million years ago, it would mean that someone had to be there to make it. And as of this point in time, there's no proof that humans of any kind were around in that time period. That was the time before the dinosaurs, for the record. There have been numerous tests done on the screw and the rock that it's embedded in, and there are many conflicting theories. One of which is that this artifact is a crinoid fossil. Crinoids were marine animals that existed millions of years ago. The only issue with this theory is that the screw is larger than their average size. Another one claims that the object is man-made. However, the iron and silicon atoms in the screw have embedded themselves in the rock, which complicated the process of dating them. Number 4. Ding bowl. If you go to a yard sale, you expect to find some fun things. But one particular thing you wouldn't expect to find is an ancient Chinese artifact. But in 2007, that's exactly what one New York family got, but they didn't know it at first. A family went to a yard sale and saw a white bowl for sale. It was basic, but they had a need for it, so they bought it for $3. Happy with the purchase, they showed it off at their house until one day they decided to learn about the bowl's origins. And what they would learn was that they were in possession of a 1,000-year-old ding bowl, and it was worth around $300,000. And you might be curious as to why it's worth that much when, as you can see, it looks really basic. It's because it's traced back to the Northern Song Dynasty, and it was actually one of the best examples of the ceramics they made. Plus, the family and the family before them took really good care of it, so it was in great condition. As an archaeologist or historian will tell you, a well-kept item is much more valuable. And this isn't the end of the tale, though. Knowing that they had a valuable item, the family put it up to auction, and instead of getting $300,000 like they were told it was worth, a bidding war took it up to $2.2 million. Not bad for an item they got for $3 at a yard sale. Number 3. The bones of King Richard III. In England during 2012, a parking lot was being dug up when all of a sudden they found a pile of bones. For the record, this happens a lot more than you may think. But the team kept calm and did what was necessary. Specifically, they sent the bones to be DNA tested, and when the results came back, the world went into shock. These bones belonged to none other than King Richard III of Leicester, England, who died in 1485. And fun fact, his death signaled the end of the legendary War of the Roses. His bones had been lost for 500 years, making the find not only accidental, but momentous. If you're curious as to how the bones of a king could be lost, it's likely because King Richard III was known as one of the most hated kings in England's history. So much so that after he died at the Battle of Bosworth, it wasn't well known what happened to his body. More than likely, it was dumped as a final insult to the late king. However, because of him being found where he was in Leicester Car Park, it can now be confirmed that he was indeed buried at Greyfriar's Friary, as that's where the car park resides right now. Regardless of the hows and the whys, this is a huge piece of history that was recovered. Number 2. Lady of Atlantis. Found in Spain near Alicante in 1897, a limestone bust of a woman was discovered by accident by a young boy moving some stones around. And from the moment this lady was found, it was put under heavy debate. The biggest debate being not only who the lady was, but when this bust was made. Guesses have it placed in the time of the Romans, but some think it might have been made before then as well. Then there is, of course, the question of who this woman was. Given the very nature and detail of the sculpture, it's fair to surmise that this lady, whoever she was a noblewoman of either a kingdom or a house. Which brings up a new set of problems, because she's unrecognizable unrecognizable. This in turn means that she wasn't part of a house that was famous in history. And because of this, there are many theories surrounding who she was, including some stating that she might have been an Atlantean goddess. Yes, at the city of Atlantis, while others think that she was part of Carthage while they were still around. There have been many thoughts, theories, and accusations thrown at the statue, but now it rests in Spain and is considered a cultural icon. Number 1. Mayan Mural. A family in Chahul, Guatemala were doing some renovations on their house when they started to chip away at the paint layers within the home, and they discovered a painting behind it. And then they found even more. After chipping away more paint, the family found themselves looking at a set of murals. But not just any murals, murals from the Mayan civilization. The Mayans ruled from 2000 BC to 250 AD, and their ways were both mysterious and incredible to those who study them. And these murals found within the house depicted a conquest dance that symbolized a victory and sacrifice to the gods of sorts. One weird thing about this discovery was that the mural was perfectly preserved within the house, but once it was exposed to the elements, the murals actually began to fade. However, due to the age of the house itself, which was about 300 years old according to the owner, it means that there could be more murals out there just waiting to be found. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these accidental and odd items found by people all over the world? Have you ever found anything weird or fascinating? Let us know, and then be sure to subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you later.